Have you ever worked really hard in an Excel workbook? You've created all sorts of wonderful formulas and you've been so creative and had to look up things and learn new things to write those formulas to make them really work well. And you've done testing and you're so proud of what you've done. And then on top of that, you have added some incredible formatting. And then someone else opens that workbook and they overwrite your formatting, or they overwrite that formula that was so hard to create. Well, there is a way to fix that issue. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and today we're going to look at how to protect cells and sheets and even workbooks in Excel. As we look at our example today, we can see that we have the company name starting in A1, and it even gives us a hint in E1 that this is a sales receipt. So it's something that perhaps a small company has created. And then I see a lot of NAs, so let's look at this a little bit. In C4, where we have our first NA, and we look at the formula bar, it says, oh, well, you used a lookup function that looks up information on the inventory worksheet. So we can come down here to the inventory worksheet where we have an inventory that lists the item number, the description of that item, and then a unit price for that item as well. And rather than trying to type all that in or look it up every time, we are using VLOOKUP to find that information for us. Well, this is really a great thing. So the way this works is something like this. The customer picks up an item and they bring it to where we're going to sell it to them, probably a register of some kind. And let's say that they have two, and then I look at the label that is on that particular item, and let's say that it's 4808, and then I would tab, and because I have a VLOOKUP formula already written in C4, it tells me that that is a wicker rocker. I also in D4 have a formula that again looks up the unit price for me, and so there it is, 150. And then the line total is another formula that multiplies the quantity times the unit price, as we can see here in the formula bar. Now, eventually, as we fill in the information, down at the bottom, we've also created formulas for the subtotal and for the sales tax and for the total. And so it all becomes very easy to use when we have Excel and we use VLOOKUP. But the one caution that we have is that we aren't the only ones who are going to be using this workbook. Anyone who needs to sell something in our business can use and should use this particular spreadsheet. Well, how can I protect my formulas so that they are not overwritten? Because that could be quite a bit of work, and maybe I don't use VLOOKUP all the time, so then I would have to look it up to figure it out, to rewrite it, and in the meantime, maybe a customer is sitting there waiting for us to fix the problem. Well, what we can do is protect certain cells, and the cells that we would want to protect are the ones that have the description and the ones that have the unit price, and then actually the totals here in column E, and then all of these, the subtotal, the sales tax, and the total. Now, when we add protection to a spreadsheet, it seems kind of backwards in what we need to do, but let me show you one way that this would work. So I know for a fact that I need to protect the cells in C4 through C13, for example. So I could do a right click and then come down in the shortcut menu down to Format Cells. Now this brings up a Format Cells window, and there's a whole lot here. We have number, alignment, font, border, fill, And the very last tab at the top is protection. So we could click protection. And it says that just by default, these cells are locked, which means people can't make changes to them. But that doesn't quite seem right. I was able to put the formulas in the first place. But down here it says, locking cells or hiding formulas has no effect until you protect the worksheet. So we would need to go to the Review tab, Protect Group, Protect Sheet button. Oh, you know, we're thinking backwards. Let's click on Cancel. Because if these cells are automatically locked, as a matter of fact, these in column D and these in column E are already by default locked, then what I really want to do is make sure that the cells where I want people to be able to make changes are unlocked. So in A4 through B13, this might be where I want to do a right click and then go down to Format Cells. And again, I get that same message, but I'm going to turn the locking off and click OK. Now the only thing is, it says that we need to go to the Review tab, Protect Group, Protect Sheet button. So let's do that. We'll click OK. We'll go to the Review tab. We'll go to the Protect Group, which is on the right. And then we have several buttons here to choose from. We're going to protect the sheet and click on that. Now we can add a password to protect the sheet. The only consideration that you might want to think about a little bit here is if you put in a password to protect the sheet and then you forget that password, you can't look it up to find out what it was. So be sure if you create a password that you have it hidden away someplace where you can go and refer to it when needed. Now we have all of these choices of what we can do when we protect our worksheet and the contents of the locked cells. Well, first of all, we could allow users of this worksheet to select the locked cells and select the unlocked cells. That seems right. But then, are we going to let them format the cells? Well, no. We'll let them format, well, nothing. Are we going to let them insert columns or rows or hyperlinks? And all of these we can check or uncheck as we believe is needed for the worksheet and for the spreadsheet that we're working on. Are we going to allow them to sort or use autofilter or create a pivot table? Well, in fact, we're just going to go with the default. So we're going to protect the worksheet and contents of the locked cells by unlocking columns A and B, and we'll click OK. Now you can tell that your sheet is protected because when I looked at this Protect group, instead of having a Protect Sheet button, I now have an Unprotect Sheet button. But let's see what happens. Let's come down to row 5 here, and let's say that I want 3, and I'm just going to type in a number of 7622. And it says garden hose, but what if I decide, you know, that can't be right. I want to overtype that. When I start to type in C5, it says, nope, the cell or chart you're trying to change is on a protected sheet. To make a change, you would need to unprotect the sheet. And if it's password protected, you need to know the password. So in fact, I can then come in, type another number if I want to do that. I can tab, it'll tell me what I have here, but if I try to make any changes, it's always going to tell me, no, this is protected. Let me come over to the formulas here, and nope, it won't let me change that. it won't let me change this. And for any of the subtotals, as I come down, can I change those? No. Now it will automatically give me an answer, but I can't make changes once this is protected. Now because we didn't add a password, I can come back up to protect and unprotect the sheet. If you find that unlocking some cells and locking others by default feels, well, just a little backwards, then this might be a more straightforward approach that you would appreciate. And that is, I'm going to select C4 through E17. And then I'm going to go to that cells group and to the last button, the format button. And by default, in this case, it is not locked. You'll see how there's no background behind locked cell. So it says lock the selected cells to keep people from making changes to them. But it also says, and we have to be careful here, you must turn on protect sheet in order for this feature to work. So first we're going to lock this cell, and then we're going to go back to format and just above lock cell, and you can see that lock cell now has that gray background behind the icon. We need to click on protect sheet. Now it opens up exactly that same dialog box that we had before. We're going to take all the defaults here and click OK. So let's go to A4 and do some testing. Let's type 2. What is our item? 4808. And when I tab, it fills in the description. Now, can I click in C4 and make a change? No, I can't. It says the cell or chart that you're trying to change is on a protected sheet. So I need to unprotect the sheet, and I might even be requested to enter a password. Well, what about D? Nope. And what about E? It's protected as well. What about the total down here? It is also protected. So the only way that I can make a change is go back to that home tab, the cells group. The format button is the only one just about that is even active. So when I click on the drop down, I can unprotect the sheet if I need to. But isn't this a wonderful tool to keep people from overwriting your workbook, and even more important, keep yourself from overwriting something that was very important to you? If I want to protect the workbook from being changed, I can do some minimal protection by going to Review in the tabs above the ribbon, and then go to the right to the Protect group. And there is a Protect Workbook choice. I can keep people from making structural changes. I can keep them from moving or adding or deleting sheets. But if I really want to protect this workbook so that only some people can even open it, for example, this isn't the place to do that. Let me click on Home just so we can get back to kind of basics. What I need to do to protect this workbook and use better options is to go to File and Save As, or in my case, and how my computer is set up, Save a Copy. And then I can browse. I'm going to save this to my desktop just because it's easier to find. But what is important is that I need to go to the bottom right, and instead of clicking on Save, which is what you would usually do, you want to go to the left to Tools. And then we want to go down to General Options. And of course, one of our choices here is we always create a backup. That doesn't seem like a bad idea, but look at this. I can set up a password so that if people want to open my workbook, they need to know the password to even open it. If they want to modify it, which means then that to open it is one thing and then they can just see it, but if they want to modify it, make changes, then they need another password. But remember, any of these passwords that you create can be lost and forgotten and you can't change them or look them up through Microsoft, you need to have them so that you can find them if you set these passwords. All right, now you also have read-only recommended. Now this is kind of an interesting choice. Let's click on it and click OK, and then I'll save. I've saved it here as this read-only option. Let's close out and let's find it. And when I double-click to open it, notice how now I have a yellow strip, a yellow banner, just below the ribbon that says it's read-only. To prevent accidental changes, the author has set this file to open as read-only. And if I want to honor whoever has created this workbook and saved it this way, then I would just read only. But notice that you also can edit anyway, so I can click on that, and then I have the right to edit this as needed. Sort of an interesting hybrid sort of protection. So those are really the basic ways that we can protect our information. We can lock cells or ranges of cells, and then, of course, protect the sheet, or we can protect the workbook by how we save it. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, Learning Express Library, LinkedIn Learning, and Udemy Business. We also premiere videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel.